Shoutout to SneakyPig200 for supporting me on level 3 of Patreon. Hey everyone, I'm Albert Boris. The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass is officially halfway completed. 3 out of 6 waves have been released now, and it's been an amazing time thus far. I can't express my gratitude enough that we're finally able to play some new remakes of courses from all across the series, whether it's from Tour, Wii, 7 or whatnot. Basically, all games have had at least one track represented. Well, except for one. 3 waves in and 24 courses out, none still hail from Mario Kart Double Dash. It's definitely a bit interesting to see that this is the case, when every other entry from the series has had at least one track represented, with Tour, Wii and Super Circuit getting off incredibly well. So exactly what do the developers have against Double Dash? Now, it might seem like that is the case, but it's probably not. While we don't have any tracks from this game yet, there are more things pointing towards that it will change than the opposite. Whether it's the prefix leak, the prefetch leak, the banner leak, so we are bound to get at least a few. But the fact we've been waiting so long for these tracks begs us all the question: what GameCube tracks are they cooking up for us that they don't want us to know about yet? No one would have thought that this question would still be relevant in 2023, but it is, and admittedly, the much larger wait for Double Dash's courses has made me more hyped about them than any other track we'll be getting in the Booster Course Pass, excluding the Tour Nitros. So I thought, let's make an entire video dedicated to this subject. This video will basically serve as a reference for my Wave 46 prediction video, where I only briefly went over my track choices. This time though, I will explain my thoughts on my GameCube predictions more in depth, both for an audience who have already seen that video, but also for a new one. First off, how are we going to do this? We can't just pick 4 random tracks and call it a day. It's boring and it's clumsy as well. No, there are a few things we need to do in order to maximize our chances of being correct. First off, there is obviously the prefix leak. With Wave 1's release, the developers accidentally left the console prefixes up for each track spot, revealing 4 GameCube courses in particular, one releasing for every wave between 3 and 6. The prefixes lined up perfectly for Wave 2. For Wave 3 it was slightly different because there was first a music leak, which also put prefetches of the upcoming Wave 3 tracks in the expected order, but Wave 3's release slightly jumbled it up. But the leaks still had the high ground, as the prefetches sounded identical to the songs in the final release, which implied they just switched the order up. So I think it's pretty certain that the developers already decided on what 4 tracks they wanted to bring back, and what placements they want them to be in. So this will give us a slight clue at least. For example, a track in Wave 6 is obviously going to be more difficult and edgy than one from Wave 4. Another way that we will be narrowing down the GameCube tracks is by looking at Mario Kart Tour. At this point, it's pretty obvious that the Booster Course Pass exists only thanks to Mario Kart Tour. Most of the tracks are nitros from that game, and even the retro courses are just slightly enhanced versions of Tour's remakes. So the GameCube tracks in the DLC will probably be tracks that are either in Mario Kart Tour right now, or courses that have been datamined to come to the game at a later date. So far, there are 5 Double Dash courses in Mario Kart Tour: Yoshi Circuit, Dino Jungle, Baby Park, Daisy Cruiser and DK Mountain. And 2 of those courses are already in Mario Kart 8 from before the Booster Course Pass, so that narrows down to at least 3 potential candidates. But there are also at least 2 upcoming courses that have been datamined through objects. Firstly and most obviously, there is Waluigi Stadium. This one is certain. So far, there are only 2 assets datamined: Wal Pakun and Wal Dokkan. Pakun and Dokkan are the Japanese names for Piranha Plant and Pipe respectively, and Wall indicates they are most likely a wall object, which is exactly what they are in this track. But even if we disregarded this datamined, a render for this track was found in a datamined alternate version of the Booster Course Pass banner. Not only that, one of the music prefetches that were datamined back with Wave 2's release was for GCN Waluigi Stadium, which put it as the second track of the Moon Cup. Another track that has been datamined for Mario Kart Tour is Mushroom Bridge. Or City. We don't know which one, or if it's both. The following assets that have been datamined for either of those tracks are Car Bomb, Car Hana-chan, and Car Mushroom. Hana-chan being the Japanese name for Wiggler. All 3 assets are found in both tracks. Both could very well be brought to Tour, but only one of them would probably have a shot in the Booster Course Pass, that's for sure. So which one would it be? Personally, I think it would be Mushroom Bridge. There are multiple reasons as to why I think it has higher chances, but the most obvious difference is the setting. Mushroom Bridge is some highway located off the cliff that juts out into the ocean. On one hand, we do already have a cliff-based highway track in Wave 1, also with a tunnel. However, the ocean difference, the wildly different shortcuts and routes, and much more mellow soundtrack makes it relatively distinct. Meanwhile, Mushroom City is a city, as if we don't have enough of them already. The Booster Course Pass is primarily themed after a tour and visiting real-life cities. That's pretty much its identity. So why would we also have a city track, perhaps the most stereotypical one, but's not themed around a real city? It would stick out in the weirdest possible way. Oh, here are 11 cities that exist in real life, and also Mushroom City. Yeah, sure, I know we already have N64 Toad's Turnpike, but that was before both the Booster Course Pass and before the idea of Mario Kart Tour was even conceived. And it's enough. Just save this track for Mario Kart 10 instead. Another thing that gives Mushroom Bridge the edge is the fact that whenever there is a twin duo of Mario Kart courses, the Mario Kart Tour developers always bring back the easier and more simple version of those tracks. It was the case for Boo Lake over Broken Pier. It was also the case with Riverside over Lakeside Park. In fact, it even seems to be the case for Waluigi Stadium over Wario Coliseum. The only exception I've noted is for DK Mountain and Dino Dino Jungle, which, to be fair, they're about the same difficulty, so it's not the biggest surprise. And no, I wouldn't call Daisy Cruiser and Peach Beach twin courses for the record, since their only similarity is the music. Lastly, this isn't necessarily why they bring it back, but they might also want to give the track some justice after it received one of the worst remakes in Mario Kart DS. They've done that with a lot of DS courses in Mario Kart 8 actually. First Yoshi Circuit and Baby Park, and in the Booster Course Pass, Choco Mountain, and depending on your point of view, Sky Garden. So yeah. So these are the two most likely upcoming tracks to Mario Kart Tour as of now. Well, it is possible that in the future, Dataminers uncover evidence of more upcoming tracks. Like, if Mario Circuit or Bowser Castle were uncovered, they could completely change this entire thing. But I also think it might be a little too late to start working on a Gamecube course now, which also then has to be rushed out to the Booster Course Pass. And the 4 tracks I do have in mind would nicely fit either way. And now, we hopefully know at least 2 of these tracks. For the other 2 tracks, we're gonna have to look at the currently released ones, the 3 not in the game already. Daisy Cruiser is a very logical candidate. Even before its appearance in Mario Kart Tour, it felt like a track they definitely bring back, being widely loved by people for its unique theme. It's also pretty much given considering when we look at the other 2 Gamecube tracks, it's more likely than not that only one of them is arriving over the other, with their identical jungle settings and musical themes. Now this is admittedly a more difficult debate compared to Mushroom Bridge and City, since both of them have a viable reason for being in the game. On the surface, DK Mountain seems to be the much more obvious choice. One thing we've all noted so far in the Booster Course Pass is the tendency to bring back fan favorite courses, mostly from DS and Wii, and DK Mountain is also a fan favorite. In fact, it's probably the most revered and iconic course from Mario Kart Double Dash. Waluigi Stadium and Daisy Cruiser are also incredibly praised, but not nearly to the same extent as DK Mountain. And there's always been at least one fan favorite per game. For Dino Dino Jungle, however, there are instead a lot of smaller things pointing towards its possible inclusion. For one, there is an advertisement in Wii Coconut Mall's remake that's themed after this track. And Mario Kart 8 is no stranger to teasing other courses in its tracks. I mean, just look at Toad's Turnpike and Super Bell Subway for example. Another thing is the prefix leak. I mean, okay, usually most of the time, the console prefix placements don't mean anything. Alpine Pass was a 4th track in Mario Kart 7, but here it's a 3rd. Shroom Ridge was a 4th too, now it's 2nd. But there are multiple instances of a track lining up with their original placements in a cup. Wii Mushroom Gorge was the 3rd track in all of its incarnations, and some tracks had at least 2 of its 3 variants in the same spot. And DS Peach Gardens wasn't just the 2nd track in all incarnations, but it also ended up in the last cup of a row all 3 times, being originally the 2nd Special Cup track in Mario Kart DS, and then for Wii's Lightning Cup, and now the Moon Cup. Interestingly enough, GC and Dino Dino Jungle followed a very similar pattern, also being the 2nd Special Cup track from its game, to then receive the exact same treatment but for Mario Kart 7. And for the prefix leak, the 2nd track in the Spinny Cup, the last one, is a Gamecube track. Now sure, you may point out that DS Peach Gardens was possibly originally intended for the Rock Cup and not the Moon Cup, which makes my point fall apart. But you also have to remember that Peach Gardens is a much more mellow track than Dino Jungle, and unlike Mario Kart Wii and DS, there are now 6 cups per row instead of 4, which also allows the developers to be more creative. And that's assuming it was even planned for the Rock Cup, and not just a stunt to subvert our expectations, because the fact that you went backwards on the final lap fits the Moon Cup far better. Maybe I'm just looking a bit too deeply into this whole track placement fear, but it does have some weight, you gotta admit. As I said, they've probably already decided what tracks are gonna be in, and what their placements will be in the process. And in that regard, DK Mountain unfortunately also loses some credibility. As a second track, it just wouldn't really work very well, at least not for me. It's much more intense in its atmosphere than Dino Jungle is, with the dangerous trek down the volcano, which you are sent at from a cannon while viewing its angry face. DK Mountain is much better as a finale or a semi-finale track, and especially in a finale cup, it feels important to have at least one track that breaks the otherwise very chaotic vibe, so it doesn't get one-sided. It's pretty much been like that for all finale cups. And I have a hard time thinking that the final city, the final Nitro, and Wii Rainbow Road would suffice that. Another thing Dino Jungle has over DK Mountain is the theme. Sure, both are jungle-based levels, but they handle the theme in different ways. DK Mountain is a DK track. Not only that, it's also a mountain track, and a cannon track. Do we not have enough mountain and cannon tracks already? So far there's only one DK track in the game, but both Wii DK Snowboard Cross and potentially a Nitro DK track have been leaked, which is more than enough for a game. So with all things considered, it might get a little repetitive with another track with 3 overused themes. Dino Jungle meanwhile has none of those, in addition to everything else I've said about it, so I'm gonna go with it. However, I wouldn't entirely rule out the possibility of DK Mountain, just for the fact that it is a fan favorite. But hopefully Waluigi Stadium and Daisy Cruiser can avenge it. Now we have narrowed down 4 tracks that are most likely to make their reappearance. Now the question is, where will they appear? Another reason I picked these tracks is because they would line up the best in the Datamined Gamecube track spots. Which doesn't mean they have to end up there in the final product, but as I already said, I think it's pretty certain that the developers already decided on what 4 tracks they wanted to bring back, and what placements they want them to be in. Dino Jungle is a no-brainer for the second track of Wave 6's Spinning Cup, for all the reasons I already mentioned. And even if it by some disaster ends up being DK Mountain, it would still make the most sense here, as opposed to any other Gamecube track I predicted, due to its climactic layout. For the other 3 tracks it becomes a little more ambiguous. Mushroom Bridge and Daisy Cruiser both fit in Wave 4 and 5. Mushroom Bridge would make sense as the first Gamecube track introduced, as it's no doubt the easiest of these, and would serve well as the first dip into the Gamecube roster. But Daisy Cruiser is the more well-liked board, while still having an easygoing atmosphere, which could make for a more strong first impression. The fact that Daisy Cruiser is a summer-themed track doesn't really mean anything, as we've seen with Snowland for example. However, they will probably go by difficulty, with Wave 5 being progressively harder than 4. And Daisy Cruiser does have a few tricky sections, as opposed to Mushroom Bridge. It could go either way, but personally I think it's more likely we'll see Mushroom Bridge first, Daisy Cruiser second, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised if they were to swap. And then there's Waluigi Stadium. As I said, it was originally datamined to appear as the Gamecube course of Wave 3, in the Moon Cup at that, but then things happened, and now no one knows for certain. To be completely fair, it could go in any of these waves, and it wouldn't feel out of place. For Wave 4, it would make sense as it's a relatively simple, yet chaotic track, so it could break the pace in an otherwise most likely easygoing collection of courses. Then assuming they simply didn't finish it in time, putting it in Wave 4 would mean they'd have to work less. However, Wave 4 will most likely also contain Wii DK Snowboard Cross, which like this track is littered with half-pipes, so it might get repetitive. Wave 5 wouldn't feel out of place either, as it definitely feels like a summer theme track, with the fact that it's a dirt bike stadium bathing under a sunset, because I guess it would be too hot to host the tournament at day. However, it was replaced in Wave 3 by Maple Treeway, which was originally a Wave 6 track, so putting this track in Wave 6 would screw over the developer's original plan the least. If they already decided on all the tracks, they might not want to do any drastic track swaps that would hurt the track order. Even after I tried to predict all of the upcoming tracks, I couldn't find a way to put this track in Wave 4 or 5, so Unless, say, the final DS track happens to be Airship Fortress, I doubt they'll swap things around. Besides, it will probably be Mario Circuit anyways because of backwards potential. Besides, if it was originally intended for a finale wave either way, why not put it here as well? And overall, those were my more in-depth predictions for which Mario Kart Double Dash courses will make a return to the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, and what spots they'll end up at. But what did you think of my predictions? Did you agree with anything? Let me know down below what your predictions are, and make sure to like, share and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video. With all that being said, I'm departing. Until next time.